Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Comics Evolve, where we discuss all things around comics media culture with your hosts, Andy, Jarian, and Alex.
Welcome to Comics Evolve, myself, Andy Stead.
And I'm Jarian Gibson.
And I'm Alex Stroud.
And here we are, guys. It's a lovely Sunday afternoon or evening for some of us. And we are back live. We've got lots to talk about today. We're going to be talking about Secret Invasion Episode 1. We're going to be talking about those big news items of the week. But before we get started, how are we? Alex, how are you?
Good. I actually have something kind of exciting that I bought this week that I wanted to show off. It is a Funko. I bought this awesome Blockbuster Funko.
Oh, wow.
Nostalgia for me, just wanted to show that off.
Look at that. That looks big.
Yeah, I mean, it's a normal size Funko. It's just
okay, maybe just holding it close to the camera.
Yeah, I mean, what's funny about it, though, is like it's a VHS, cassette, case with feet and eyes holding a popcorn bowl. So, I mean, cool little piece of nostalgia there. So
nice. Yeah, I had... Blockbuster in my hometown, we had our own local music and video retailer, and actually it's quite well renowned in the UK actually. And funnily enough, he's closing down later this year. He's retiring, but it's been a very, very well renowned music retailer all over the UK. He's not had shops all over the UK, but in our town, and people came from a long way away just to come to our town, to come to this music place. And he always done music hire and film hire and music and vinyls and stuff like that. So we always hired from them. So there was no chance that Blockbuster was ever going to get into our town. And then when I went to university, there was a Blockbuster. So I've got fond memories of university of hiring movies from Blockbuster. But yeah, that looks great. What a great little Funko. And it always makes me laugh as well. The South Park episode of when they've got Blockbuster and Randy buys a Blockbuster and it's just like a ghost town.
What's really funny about me for Blockbuster is one of my favorite memories is when I was a kid, I had never seen that movie Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And I came home from school one day and I was like, Dad, have you ever seen this movie? Somebody's talking about this at school. And my dad was like, what do you mean you've never seen this movie? Get in the car, and puts me in the car and goes there and rents it. And we watch it. Everything is really funny. So
brilliant.
That's one of my favorite memories of Blockbuster. So
brilliant. And what a great memory to have with Monty Python as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely set the standard for comedy in the sort of 70s and 80s and going forward. So, yeah, fantastic. Jarian, how are you?
Doing good. Actually, I renewed my Marvel Unlimited subscription, so I got a nice box in the mail. So let's check out the box here.
Yeah, let's do it.
I got a nice, first of all, it has a nice letter in here for joining up, and then you get a nice Daredevil type
nice
thing here, and then you also get a comic book as well. So you get this nice
lovely yeah
comic book, and then let me see, we go further in, you get a nice Daredevil pin.
That's cool.
You get a Captain America iron-on patch.
Nice.
And then you get a nice Daredevil
oh wow
figurine here as well. So yeah, pretty cool. I did that yearly subscription thing, and I didn't realize which tier I bought, but you get a free gift with it. This is what all came in the mail. So I'm like, what's that She-Hulk box sitting on our front porch? When they dropped it off, I opened it up, I was like, oh, this is from Marvel Unlimited. So yeah, it's a pretty cool looking box.
Yeah, it's so funny you brought that up because I actually got this one recently.
Hey.
And I literally got it in the mail, and I was like, what did I order that I forgot about? And I opened it up and I was like, oh, I forgot I'm still in this subscription thing. And I was like, maybe I'll get that High Evolutionary Funko. And I did not get one. So, but I was really excited for that box. So
yeah, usually it's funny when I forget what I ordered, what came in the mail. Usually it's something Lego related, and I get the side eye from my wife. Like, for example, I got a big box in the mail and I forgot that I got Ninjago City. So the main Ninjago City from the movie. And then we got a couple other big Ninjago sets I found on eBay for a pretty good price that were used. So I was talking to my son last night. I was like, all we need to find is the city docks now, because we have the gardens and we have the other one where they all form a big city. But yeah, city docks one is kind of hard to find. If it's, if you find it, it's expensive. So I'm still trying to find a good used price on it. But yeah, usually for me, it's Legos, and I forget that comes in the mail.
My wife always jokes that Alexa's been ordering stuff for her. I tell you what I've been up to. I've finally watched Super Mario Brothers.
Nice.
Great movie.
Yes.
What a great movie. What a great
Mhm.
movie. Do you know what? For me, funnily enough, talking about Lego, it's up there with a Lego movie for me.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, and I know what everybody's been saying there. Everybody's been saying about the sort of little nostalgic pieces, the little Easter eggs that are in there. And it doesn't come in the form of Easter eggs that we're used to with comic book movies. It comes in the form of like when they zoom out and all of a sudden you've got this side on platform style view of Mario jumping over things. And you're just like, that's awesome. Like that is really clever.
It's almost like everything is a set piece in that movie. Like there's a scene with like I loved Yoshi's Story on Nintendo 64 as a kid. So there's a scene where they're like going through and you just see a bunch of Yoshi like stampeding in the background. And I was just like, man, there's the Yoshi. Like I was just like checking off things that I remember from my childhood. And stuff,
it's almost like you could do a bingo.
Yeah,
While
exactly.
watching that, like, oh, there's that. Yeah.
All
And
the
I
punch out
love-
stuff.
Yeah. And I love DK. So I was so happy about how much like Donkey Kong was in this movie. Like I just was like, I was eating that up this whole time. And I love the little like him and Mario kind of teaming up there in the end. Love that. That was an awesome little thing they did there.
Excellent. So many cool little touches, like when they're building their carts as well. You know, they're building their carts, their Mario carts, and that was great. When he's skidding and he does the little jump, because I remember playing Mario Kart when, you know, I was sort of 11, 12, and you got if you jumped and skidded, it boosts speed, and you know, it even picked up that. And for me, that was on the same level as the Lego movie. What the Lego movie did exactly the same, where it was kind of like you know, like Emmett's walking around and he picks up a piece and he goes, "What is this piece for?" And you're like, "That's exactly what I used to think. Like, what is this for? Like, this is nothing, you know." But no, very well done, very nostalgic. I can't wait to actually watch that again. I'm really looking forward to a second watch on that. And yeah, if they make, I know you guys have both said it, and I know everybody said it. If they make a universe around that or sequels around that, I'm all in.
Yeah, one of my favorite parts too was they did the Rainbow Road thing from Mario Kart, which was like, that was just so awesome looking and everything. And I used to have this game when I was a kid called Diddy Kong Racing. It was like a spin-off of Donkey Kong, but it was like focused on Diddy Kong. So when they had Diddy Kong in the movie, like I was like, yes! Like I was like, cheering, you know, I was so excited. So it was just deep little pools everywhere that they did in that movie, you know. So.
Absolutely. And you know what? The story was really great as well. I mean, it was basic, wasn't it? I mean, you kind of knew what was going to happen, but it was great. It was well executed. I thought the voice actors were good. The comedy was good. The graphics were good. There was not a lot to hate. And I think you said it maybe last week or the week before, Alex. You can see why this movie is doing so well in the box office, and you really can. Like I think it's got a bit of everything as well. You know, this harps back, I think, to classic prime Pixar. You know, where they nailed a great story, they nailed great characters, they nailed good stuff for the kids, and they also nailed good stuff for the adults.
Yep. I mean, like halfway through the movie, there's this line where Mario's talking to Peach and he's like, "Come to Brooklyn and I'll get you a turtle," right? Because she's talking about like how turtles are different there in comparison to on his world. And then at the end of the movie, like they go to Brooklyn and Bowser's in that little glass, you know, and he's like, "Look, I got you a turtle." And I busted out laughing at that. Like, I just thought that was like so good. It was like the humor was pretty good in this movie, you know, like it wasn't like over the top. It was like pretty, just like it was used when it should have been used. I felt like, you know, very good movie.
Yeah, I'm interested to see where they go next with this. Are they going to build a franchise of it? Are they going to stay more contained to Mario and Donkey Kong and that kind of stuff? Or are they going to expand it out? Because with all of the Easter eggs for Punch-Out they put in the movie, I would love to see a Punch-Out movie. I think that would be great to go through. You probably get some kind of tease about Mike Tyson in there, but for the most part, they'll stick to the non-Mike Tyson version, going through all the training, the fighters. I think they can make a pretty cool movie out of that as a side thing. And like you said, they could make some kind of universe out of this as well, where they all kind of team up to come down to some kind of big team-up event at the end of it.
Mhm.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. Very impressed. We all enjoyed it. The only downside for me is that my son was downloading the game on the Xbox, so the actual download was really slow and it kept pausing. And I was like, oh, it's really frustrating. You know, there was a bit right at the end, you know, when he gets the star and they're doing their little chase thing. Him and Luigi are doing their chase thing, and then it stopped and it, you know, the little spinny wheel comes up and you're like, oh, come on. You know, I was just in the flow of things, and here it is, it's stopping, and you're like, oh, come on. But no, excellent movie.
From the
One night-
chat, oh, go ahead.
I was just saying one nice little thing I thought they added to was a lot of people complained that Luigi was kind of separated for a large part of that movie. I got so many Luigi's Mansions vibes
Yep,
in
exactly.
his stuff that I absolutely was like, no, this is great that he's like, I think they called it the Dark Worlds or
Yep,
whatever
yep.
that he was in. Like, I love that because like it was just like Luigi's Mansion to me. Playing
Yeah,
that,
no,
so.
I think they've done that. I think they've done that perfectly. I think that was really nice the way that they did it. I mean, Mario's the main character, but I thought Luigi got a
His
decent
due.
amount of time. Yeah, definitely.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely.
From the chat here, hey fellas, hope everyone's well. I'll be able to watch the first half today, maybe a little longer if I'm lucky. This is probably one of our group members. I can't see the name though from this chat, but we'll check the group chat to see who that was. But yeah, we're all doing good.
That's the one and only RMC.
Oh, it's RMC. Okay, I figured it was Ruben for a second. 'Cause I know Ruben said he was in today with the time zone change and so forth. So, what's up, RMC? Glad you're back with us. I need you to come out to Kansas and do some hardscaping for me.
Right. Let's get stuck into this. Are we going to do Secret Invasion first?
Yeah, so we'll do the news first. We'll talk about the episode 1, and then I'll get into the rest of
Let's
the news
do it.
after that. Sound good?
Yeah.
All right, Secret Invasion news. Don Cheadle on different role. I think we're just kind of finding out what's happening with Rhodey as the series goes on. So, his character's evolution in the post-blip world. He's in a different role. We see him as more political animal than we have seen him in the past. He's been more of a military man, but now he's sort of, you know, in some ways, right hand of the president and the special envoy in that regard. So it does sound like he has changed roles from being just a colonel to being some kind of either advisor, secretary of state, joint chiefs of staff, some very good or very high role within the government. I'm interested to see, too, what he plays, especially with the first episode we saw and where this comes out. He also talked about his relationship with Fury. I think what I'm looking forward to is just seeing more, you know, getting under the hood of who he is and seeing how this relationship, not only with Nick Fury, but the other cast members evolve. So this definitely does sound like this is going to build up more into the Armor Wars project that's supposed to be happening with just his role in this. And I'm all for it, looking forward to it. Samuel Jackson talked about on where it ranks on his list of projects, Secret Invasion. It ranks as number 1 in terms of things that I've done in the, you know, Marvel Cinematic Universe. I really loved Winter Soldier, so that tone, you know, flows into this very, in a very kind of the way. And it's a story about people doing stuff, you know, without, you know, all those supers coming in to save you and help you doing all that other stuff. So it definitely sounds like we're not going to see anybody major come in, maybe very into the season tease, but this is going to be a street level Captain America, Black Widow type of movie and not see the extended major characters in here. There's also a rumor going around that there's going to be a very big scroll reveal for an MCU character. I take that as being either we're going to see someone major that in this series that's been a scroll the whole time. If that's the case, my guess is Rhodey. We all been talking about that. I might be it, or someone adjacent to a large MCU character. And there's some rumors going on that Samuel Jackson's wife could have been a scroll the whole time.
I don't mind it, but we've not even seen her.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't mind that idea, but from our point of view as viewers, like she might be important to him, but she's not really important to us because we've never seen her.
Yeah, and it goes to that line that he said that to Talos in the first episode. I've seen better looking scrolls than you.
Mhm.
So maybe he did fall in love with the scroll up there in space on Saber from No Way Home going forward, or even back when he first got introduced to scrolls back in Captain America. Maybe he met one, fell in love, and there you go.
Well, it's funny you say that, Andy, about like how it doesn't feel like it's that important of a character to us, because that's the way I kind of felt like Talos was before Secret Invasion. Was I didn't really think that he was that important of a character. It felt like he was just kind of like filling in for Fury while he was off world, you know, for the most part. And I don't know why, but I never really like thought too deep about how much I thought he was going to really play into the series,
Mhm.
and I think he's going to be, probably just as much in it as Nick Fury is.
It's Fury, yeah.
Yeah.
This is Samuel Jackson and Ben Mendelsohn's show.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Ali Salim, who's like the director on the show, he talked about Kevin Feige not allowing some ideas due to conflicting plans in the MCU. He said, I guess it's a question for Kevin Feige, but all ideas were on the table. All ideas were good. Some ideas were less good. And some ideas were killed because Kevin has a plan going down the road. And I'm not sure what that plan is. We had free reign until it didn't make any sense for the story. So to me, I wonder if any of that conflicted with anything we're going to see moving forward, especially with the rumored Armor Wars project happening. So
Interesting.
So I wonder if they maybe they made Rhodey a Skrull and said, nope, you can't do that. But honestly, let's have this conversation real quick. So I know Alex and I had this conversation, and I think we had it before on this show. Rhodey being a Skrull, and being switched out between Iron Man 1 and Iron Man 2 would make the most sense because of the actor change, but it would hit much deeper if he's been a Skrull this whole time since Tony knew him in college at MIT, those early days. But I think for the arc of the MCU, it would make so much sense that if he was a Skrull later and not earlier and missed what happened in Endgame, because I think him finding out about Tony's death while he was switched out would make so much more impact to him in the MCU.
So watching the Legends episode last week, they almost completely and utterly omitted anything rogue. Well, they did. You didn't see Terrence Howard in the Legends episode at all.
Yep.
Which I thought was, in a way, it was a little bit patronizing to us as viewers, because for me, I'm and I know for you two as well, for certain, and I'd like to think for a lot of the people that we know on a slightly sort of deeper level in regards to Marvel stuff, some of the guys on our group, that we're mature enough to understand that actors change, and things happen, that
Ross, for example.
Yeah, exactly. Like we're not going to sit here and go, oh, what's happened? We understand. There's contracts and there's negotiations that go on with actors. So I would have liked to have seen some of Terrence Howard's scenes from Iron Man 1 in that Legends episode to keep filling out Rhodey's story. And I wouldn't have been confused. I understand how some people would have been, but I personally wouldn't have been. Anyway, I also think that is another reason why they probably won't do anything to do with him being a Skrull from that point. I just think, like you said, Jarian, I think it'll be a lot later. If he is a Skrull, I think it'll be a lot later.
Yeah, and I really I kind of am hoping that he's DOD, he's kind of taken that Tony Stark role. He's head of the Department of Defense for the US government or something, and then they do that whole thing maybe he gets switched out either in recent years or maybe at some point in this show and we don't know it. But I mean I'm almost getting this vibe that they're talking about there may be a season 2 for this.
Yep.
So I mean if there's a season 2, I'm I know I said a week or so ago, it would be so funny if Rhodey was at the end of this and he was hey, phase 1 is complete. Now we move into phase 2. And that's where I feel this is going to kind of go where they're going to think that maybe they won at the end of Secret Invasion, but it was really just the first step in the movement of what they're actually trying to do.
So if you read the latest Secret Invasion run, there's a 5-issue run right now. It's actually Marvel Unlimited. It's heavy Maria Hill and Nick Fury focus with some Tony Stark sprinkled into it. But at the end of the run, they kind of do a nice thing about how they could continue the series going forward. And there were some interesting new Skrull advancements I'm not gonna give it away, so I don't want to spoil it for somebody who hasn't read it yet. There's an interesting new Skrull advancement in this one. Tony Stark does some Tony Stark things, but at the end of it, it's kind of similar where it sets up the next run of the series. I wonder if they could follow this series without Tony Stark, Rhodey maybe being in there, heavy Maria Hill, or Nick Fury focused, and go with that, and then that kind of sets up season 2 because we've maybe only seen the scratch of the surface of the Super Skrull in the MCU version, and we get more Super Skrull in second season, for example. So
And I think that would be a crazy twist if like Rhodey actually ended up being like a super scroll or something like that, like, and that could be one of those things where maybe he tries to pit people against, Avengers and things like maybe Rhodey takes kind of like a Norman Osborn kind of role in the MCU, like kind of building his own kind of group and stuff like that. I mean, they could do kind of a lot, and with Armor Wars on the horizon, they could kind of point this in, I feel like, couple of directions, to be honest. So
a couple of things from the chat here. I'm sure they would have noticed when Vision shot him out of the sky if he was a scroll back then. Gotta be after that if he is, I guess. That's a great point. And also Rhodey was not snapped, but he could have been switched out during the blip while he was off doing those missions on his own and looking for Clint, aka Ronin, when he reports back to the rest of them. So that's a great point there. Another one, I also thought the docs would have noticed if Rhodey was... Oh, hold on. Same person said the same thing. But the scroll... I also thought I would notice that if Rhodey was a scroll in the hospital, but I think the scroll facade goes down deep to the DNA level imitation. So that's a great point, too. So even though he did get shot down, he still not would have revealed himself, because usually we don't see them get changed until they die, and he was still alive. So that's a great point. Someone also goes, the blip would have been a prime opportunity. That's a great, Yep. He wasn't snapped, but he was off doing things and they were shorthanded. So that would have been a great time to snatch him.
Yeah. And I think that you can see that they're leading heavily into the effects of the blip in this show. And I think that that's exactly where the Skrulls would have seen their opportunity to act.
Yep.
Definitely. I mean, people get snapped, you can easily replace them, and you can seamlessly just take over their lives and just be like, I was never snapped. So I assume that when everybody returned 5 years later and a bunch of people have been living their lives for the last 5 years and they haven't been here, they're going to be like, how is this possible? And I'm sure that's going to be a perfect spot for them to take the place of world leaders, for them to like slide into government positions,
Do you think we could get, just on that note, that's a really good point. Do you think we could get, so in the original Secret Invasion run, we got that that shot, that it was a big 2-page spread of when the ship came back to Earth and everyone got off of the ship and everyone was sort of looking at each other. It was like looking at a mirror and everyone was like, wait a minute, who's this? Who's the real one? Do you think we could get, I mean, obviously with the blip, everyone came back in their place that they got blipped in. But do you think we could potentially get something along those lines for that reason, the fact that Skrulls may have taken the place of people that were blipped, and then somehow the Skrulls have managed to get the people that were blipped when they re-emerge, they've collected them up, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like if you're a high government official and you've been operating for 5 years and then another one of you pops up, and like that's like very concerning. It's like, what is this, like a shapeshifter? Like, what's the deal with this? Like, there's going to be so many questions if you're in the MCU. So I feel like they would almost have to like snuff out that person before that person could, like, so I feel like
contact anybody.
Yeah, exactly. So like if you're the Skrulls and like everybody starts reappearing, you instantly go into damage control mode.
Yeah,
because
that's what
you're
I'm
like,
saying. That's what I'm saying.
You're like, we've got to get this problem resolved because we've been taking stuff over for like the last 5 years. So yeah.
Also, too, I'm interested to see, because it looks like we know the president from the previews is a Skrull. When did he get switched out? Because it looks like you see Fury shooting his helicopter down in one of the previews. And so at some point either during this series or before, he was switched out as a Skrull. Also, too, in the latest comic book run that referenced as well, they actually revealed that they've had deep cover Skrulls in high priority positions for a long, long time too. So I wonder how that's going to play also.
Where do I know that guy from? The president?
He was in Young Guns. He was in all kinds of stuff. I can't remember his full name.
I recognize the guy. Yeah, but I can't. I was literally just searching for it and I can't find it. And I was like, I recognize him, and I meant to do it at the time. And I thought to myself, I'm going to do it now, and I still can't find him. Somebody messaged me his name because I recognize him from so many things.
It's Dermot M. is his name. I can't remember his last name. He's been on Friends. He was in Young Guns. I'm trying to think what else he's been in. He was
in Friends, wasn't he?
Yes. He was Jennifer Aniston's boss when she came back from maternity leave, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, do you know what? I'm seeing him now in loads
Yep.
of things now that my mind is starting to go, yeah, do you remember him in this? And I'm like, yeah, I remember seeing the guy. Where did I remember seeing him recently? As soon as I find out his name, I'll realize where I've recognized him
So
from.
a question from the chat here. They couldn't have been able to clone that many people unless they had already done it before they dusted, right?
True.
That's a good yep, because and it goes back to the next piece. They showed in the first episode the tech they had to steal a person's memories and mind. I bet they did it a lot of people that came back. So that same tech we also saw in Captain Marvel that Talos was using on Carol to kind of reach into her memories. But how far back do they go? Because we saw that in Captain Marvel, they can make new memories, but they couldn't go back to old memories and remember certain things. So I wonder what's the limitation of that tech? Have they advanced that tech as well? So good point there. And then from the chat, someone goes real quick. Sorry, Dermot Mulroney is the person. Yep.
All right, I've got to work out exactly what I know him from now. Go on, carry on.
I was just going to throw in there one thing that I do want to point out, though, is I think that a scroll could probably look at a picture and replicate somebody. I mean, they literally just like sit down in front of somebody in this show, and you just see them copy exactly what they look like.
You saw that in Captain Marvel, though, when they walked on the beach, right? They just looked at a person real quick, so they could take any kind of picture. And when we talk about Ross, I have a thing about that. About the whole Ross thing. But before we get to that point, another person says, I think they seem to take a look, but the tech they have to use for mind supports what you're saying, I think. So they kind of agree with what we're talking about then, it sounds like. But go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, so I feel like, maybe, I guess, like, the issue I have is like, is it 100% like efficient on their transformations when they like copy somebody's appearance? Is this going to be one of those things where it's like they don't do it perfectly, and like Fury's talking to somebody and realizes that like, there's something off about them, the moles on the opposite side of their face or something, like one of those things. There's so many different things that they could kind of do with that. And I mean, like, it seems like they just look right at you and it's like, boom, I'm your exact copy. But they have none of your memories. So they could easily replace somebody, I feel like, during the blip, but they just wouldn't know all of their knowledge, So it would be one of those things that when the people returned, it would be like, hey, let's go get that knowledge now that they had before. And
unless, should I talk about Ross right now real quick? So I can forget this. So first episode, right off the bat, we see Everett Ross, right? Last time we saw Everett Ross, he was being saved by Okoye in her Midnight Angel suit, being taken off by some black site because he kind of went against Val to help Wakanda. So when did Ross come back on the scene? Is I'm wondering, when did he, where did he go, after Okoye saved him? My guess, the real Ross is still around back in Wakanda. Here's my guess of what's going on here. I think 100% now that Val is a Skrull, and Val could be Queen Van Ranke. Because think about it, Ross knew certain things. He talked the way he did. How would he know that knowledge without actually the real Ross? Val, right? She was married to him. She was his boss. She would know all those intimate details to feed into an imposter for him. So I think the other Ross is still out there. The real Ross is still out there. I think he's still in Wakanda. I think that directly gives us evidence that Val is of either Queen Van Ranke or very high up there Skrull, and she's been one of those very deep cover Skrulls for a long time. Because think about it, she comes on the scene at the end of Black Widow. She's trying to pit Yelena against Hawkeye. Think about it. Take out your people who are going to interfere with what you're doing. Hawkeye is a prime target to be taken out. Then she shows up in Falcon Winter Soldier. Tries to manipulate John Walker, and then now we know her next project is going to be in Thunderbolt. So she's going to be tied in the government ways. She has that kind of stuff. I think this kind of tells us that Val is going to be one of those prime Skrulls going forward in the MCU.
100%.
I mean, like, I think Val is one of those characters that she appears to try and bring people together, but she's really dividing them.
Yep.
And I mean, like you said that with, like, she's trying to drive the wedge between Yelena and Hawkeye. She pulls John Walker in at the end of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and she's like, yeah, you did wrong, but we need a person like you right now. Like, you were actually in the right, kind of. And, I mean, like, I feel like she's going to basically kind of, she's just causing problems. She's starting little fires everywhere.
Yeah, and she's preying on vulnerable people as well.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
She preyed on Yelena when she was vulnerable, when she'd lost her sister. She preyed on John Walker when he was vulnerable, when he'd lost the Captain America mantle. She's preying on vulnerable people. And yeah, I think the Ross that we saw at the end of Wakanda Forever being broken out by Okoye was the real Ross.
Mm-hmm.
I think this Ross that we saw was just an imposter Ross, exactly like you said, Jari, and he's just been impersonated by a Skrull by the direction of Val.
And that line where, like, in the beginning of the episode, not to jump to the episode, but just like the very beginning where he's like talking to this guy who's like, I got all this evidence about Skrulls and everything. And he's like, you're going to have to show me some evidence. I can't go to Fury with nothing. In that moment, I was like, yeah, he's a Skrull. Because he wants the evidence because he's going to kill him right after.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And destroy the evidence. Yeah.
Yep. And so that was like exactly what seemed like it was going to happen, you know? So I don't know. Like, this is very interesting.
So this episode has kind of started off with some controversy out there, and two big things for the controversy. One is the opening credits. This was the first time that an MCU project used AI for the opening credits. People are out there saying they're taking jobs away, this and that, but the AI that was used for the opening credits, it was still made by a VFX studio and an 8-person team, including an animator. So they didn't really take some jobs. They kind of helped. It became a tool, but I can see people's angst with AI being used because I'm not the biggest fan of the opening credits. I think they could have been better, but I understand them using AI for this type of show because of the way the tone and nature of the show. But yeah, that was the big first controversy out there, is the opening credits.
What exactly? I don't really understand. If I'm totally honest with you, what exactly happened? Like, because I actually quite like the opening credits. If I'm honest, I like the theme and I like the artwork. But yeah,
they told AI what to draw, and it drew it using imagery from the internet and things like that to create imagery for them to use in the, I guess, beginning credits.
That's a shame. And I now like it less.
And they probably took what the AI output to them, touched it up to make their own, and then put it out there. But AI was probably a big tool in creating that and feeding it certain parameters to make that intro.
Yeah, I now like it less. However, that actually feeds into the show quite nicely because I thought I knew something and now I didn't, and then now I do, and now I've got different feelings about it. So that's kind of exactly what the show is about, I suppose.
And I've seen like other people make this argument that like it's kind of an interesting idea to do with this show because this whole show is about like people being impersonated by like aliens.
Exactly, the tone, the nature of the show.
So like this is like an AI creating something that like most people I guess are thinking like a person made. So it's kind of a weird kind of twist there. But I don't know if I agree. But you know,
I get the angst though with everybody because the whole writer's strike right now. There's supposed to be an Actors Guild strike coming, so I get the angst of it, and I understand people's reservations about using AI to do things right now.
Yeah, if I didn't, it's funny actually. I feel I need to review my own faults now because I quite enjoyed the opening credits. Actually, I really like the opening credits. I like the music, I like the artwork, I liked it all. However, now I'm not sure. So and now I need to review my thoughts about it because I don't like the idea of AI. I agree with, I think that might be Jamie Cloud. I'm not sure, might be RMC, but yeah, I agree with whoever that is that's saying whatever they said.
Yep. So from the chat, what he's saying is they don't like AI in any form personally. So, but yeah, the other controversy is this show has started off way too slow, and people are complaining about the pace of the show, which I don't get because off the bat, you got Ross coming out. Basically, you know, we don't know the backstory on Ross, right? And then we get him seeing us being a Skrull. We get Maria Hill back in the fold, which we haven't seen actual Maria Hill probably since she got snapped, the real Maria Hill, since she got snapped. You know, we did see Maria Hill in Home or Far From Home, but we found out that was Talos and his wife impersonating them or covering for them, and we at least knew that Fury was on Saber. But where's the real Maria Hill been? And if you think about Secret Invasion, she always has some kind of trick up her sleeve, right? Whether she's an LMD, whether she's a decoy, that kind of stuff. And just going through, we find out that Talos is... Should I just go through these bullet points real quick? Because people are talking about the slowness, and we'll talk about them. We find out Talos' wife is dead. So when did that happen? You know, what are the details around that? We know that basically Gravik had something to do with her death. We find out that their daughter Gaia has not been around them for ages. You know, we found out that Nick Fury came back down, but you know, was it the real Nick Fury or a different Nick Fury? Because there's some precedent in the comics of some misdirection with these characters. We get some bombings. We get all that kind of stuff. So I don't think where is the whole thing about the show being too slow. I think it started out very well. And people, and even before the reviews came out, I said it kind of started off slow and then picked up towards the end. And then in episode 2, we jump right into it. But as far as the pacing wise or being slow, I don't see the show as being slow. I thought that episode was pretty good.
Yeah, me too. And I've not got a problem with, even if it was slow, even if you want to call it slow, I've not got a problem with slow. You know, I really like good dialogue. You know, you look at Andor, for example, the Star Wars show. There was slow, quote unquote, episodes in that where it was, you know, there was conversations between Mon Mothma and other council officials which would be perceived as slow, but were really great dialogue. And I thought, so for example, I thought the dialogue between Samuel Jackson and Olivia Colman's characters was excellent. I really enjoyed that, and I'm really looking forward to seeing more of Olivia Colman. But yeah, I don't think that everything has to be 100 miles an hour all the time.
Yeah,
I quite like that step back and that exposition and that sort of let's think about things a little bit longer and see people having a drink in a bar, because as long as it's relevant, which I think it all was, then I'm okay with that.
Well, I almost feel like that scene in the bar of them playing chess was meant to communicate that this is getting ready to be a delicate chess game of like trying to figure out what your opponent's next move is and play to what you expect them to do. And that was like meant to kind of give off that idea. They sit there and they're like talking about chess a little bit, but not really, but they're still kind of playing and stuff like that. Yeah. You know, so it's kind of like, this is kind of a weird situation. Like it almost kind of feels like everybody thinks Fury's off his game in this show. And
but
which he definitely isn't.
He definitely isn't, but he's definitely dealing with the trauma of being snapped and coming back, because before that moment in the MCU, he's always been one step ahead, 3 moves, whatever, ahead of everybody. We see now that there definitely is some interpersonal issues Nick Fury has got to deal with from what we saw. And again, that is building out this story even better, because we know that's going to probably help drive him as this series goes on.
Yeah, there was a great moment in that game of chess, Alex, where Maria says to him, I didn't think we lied to each other while we're playing chess.
Yep.
I love that. I think that is beautiful. That just gives you so much history that there's obviously a moment in their past where they've sat down and played chess and they've made an agreement with each other that when we play chess, we'll have a chat, we'll play chess, and there's no lying. There's no spy stuff. It's all truth. It's all laid out on the table. Everything's right here on this board. And I love that. I think that is really, really cool.
Well, remember that moment when in Age of Ultron, when he asked Tony if he could borrow Maria Hill, and Tony makes some comment about, well, she's always been in your, on your team anyways, or something like that. Yeah. So I almost wonder before she went over to Stark Industries to work for Tony Stark, in between the fall of S.H.I.E.L.D. and that kind of stuff, if there was a chess game then about, what happens if something comes to a point where you have to kind of get back or what kind of communication they had back and forth. Because we know from that line, from that whole conversation in that chess game, they've always been in constant contact and they've always been truthful with each other. Like also too, she was one of the only people that knew that he was still alive in Winter Soldier when everyone thought he was dead too as well. So that trust is there and it's been there for a very long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sorry, Alex, go on.
I was just going to say, I felt like it going into the episode a little bit, how it ends with her. People talking about this episode being slow. I mean, you have, the fake Ross die in the beginning. You have the guy that he kills. You have Maria Hill's like supposed death at the end of this episode. You have like explosions because they blow up a bunch of stuff. I mean, like it is kind of slow, but this is like you got to walk before you run. I feel like with this show.
It's setting the table.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, like, there is like high stakes. We see 3 deaths supposedly in this first episode, So
and unapologetic explosions as well. And what I mean by that is you clearly see people being blown up.
Mm-hmm.
This is unlike the Civil War explosion, which obviously we got information after that where we understand that people died. you know, in the when Wanda sends
Yep.
Crossbones.
Crossbones. Yep.
Yeah. But this was like you saw people flying through the air. So this is what I'm saying about unapologetic. So yeah, the deaths you was mentioning, Alex, like those personal deaths that we saw on screen, but you saw lots of other deaths as well. You know, actual people dying. You know, like innocent people were getting blown up. You know, I mean, I don't think this was slow.
We also find out too that Skrulls have been impersonating terrorist groups for a while now too. So again, the slowness. I don't see it.
Yeah.
From the chat, speaking of Maria Hill's death, I don't think that we've seen the last of Maria. Hope not, anyways. And then the comments about Fury. Fury capitalizing on people's underestimating him for sure. I love the heady stuff, and this is going to be just that, I think. And yeah, especially that conversation with. Well, first thing. Take a snap back here. They prominently showed the White House in the opening credits, which I think is more hints that the White House and big government places are already compromised with Skrulls. But then, you know, going into other things too, before I get to back to Olivia Colman, they've already been adapting to the planet, right? We saw that you can grow Skrull vegetation here. Talos had that plant that his wife was growing, and it took. Then you have Gaia, and we showed her that they had Skrull wine. They had Skrull food, all in that camp that they were at. I wonder if the radiation from them being in that area has something to do with that. But you see, they're already planning to build a new, because they called it what, New Skrullos, I think they called it.
Skrullos.
Yeah, Skrullos. So they're already planning to take over. So we're seeing those things too, where they're building that. But we also found out that Talos is no longer very welcome within the Skrull group, right? He was on their council. He was the leader of their council, I thought. Now he's gone. And now Gravix, yeah. So you're seeing all that stuff build up. But then kind of going back to Olivia Colman's conversation, that was, like Andy said, that was a pretty great conversation between those two. You know, and Fury doesn't trust her, she doesn't trust Fury. Fury put that bug on the owl's eye. I thought that was pretty interesting. There's been, you know, talk about that, or that comment about a large black man walking around Moscow. I almost spit out my drink when I was my coffee when I was watching that. And then, but also too, just that conversation back and forth, the trust, the non-trust, the bugging. There's some history there between those two. A lot of people think though that she's tied to Union Jack. I'm not sure about that though. Do you guys remember who Spymaster was from the comics?
No.
Because she made a comment about an old English tradition, or an old English spymaster that started the tradition. I think the comment she made in that conversation. Right. So in the comics, there's a person called Spymaster, whose Spymaster basically is one of the catalysts for kicking off Armor Wars in the comics run, right? Okay. So what happens is he sold Stark designs to Justin Hammer in Armor Wars.
Yeah.
So this could also be, she could be tied to the MCU Spymaster, and we know this show, again, sets up Armor Wars. And so I wonder if she's going to end up being the MCU version of Spymaster or tied to them. That conversation was kind of interesting. I was like, when I heard that Spymaster thing, I had to go back and watch it again and again to make sure I heard what I heard. But I wonder if they're, you know, the whole Union Jack thing with Misdirection and her actually being a Spymaster tie in the MCU, especially knowing that Armor Wars is coming.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to, I'd like to see a lot more of her. Mm-hmm. I mean, I really like, so there's, I don't know if you've seen the movie The Gentleman with, it's a Guy Ritchie movie with Hugh Grant and Matthew McConaughey's in it. But it's a typical Guy Ritchie movie, a little bit more modern than Snatch and Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels. But I'd really like to see a Captain Britain movie like that, and I think she would fit into a movie like that perfectly, absolutely perfectly. Like what she displayed in this episode 1 would be perfect in a Captain Britain movie in that style, absolutely perfect. So, yeah, really looking forward to seeing more of her. But that's really interesting what you just said there. And that could play into a movie like that.
Mm-hmm. A couple other things, too. The whole Skrull side of things, right? So when they're there, they're in their natural form, but all the soldiers or the warriors stay in their human shells longer, you know, full time to help avoid a detection. So that was interesting, too. Only the warriors of the compound, so anyone who's not a warrior has to stay there. That's interesting. And then also too, they mentioned a comment about at least 100 operatives are in the field, and then most identities are kept secret, and only a few, I think like Gravik and probably his closest people, only know who they are. that was also interesting as well. So that whole scroll scrollos, kind of thing, very interesting to see what that plays out and how long have those 100 operatives in the field been there.
So I have this little wild theory. It may not actually happen, but you know how they keep talking about like Talos' wife dying and it being at the hands of this scroll group. And they keep saying, I think Talos keeps saying it's the leader that did this. You don't know who you're following, kind of type of thing. I don't know if this will actually happen, but I think it would be a wild twist if Gravik actually turned out to be Talos' wife.
Ooh.
And like it would just be like a big because nobody would know that Gravik was actually her. And when he or she, whatever, when she turned into Gravik, she could basically have killed her previous self, and she did technically kill her previous self. And they haven't really said anything about where Gravik came from, really. So I mean, and they're not really talking about how she died either. They're they keep bringing it up, but they won't tell you if he found her, did he find her dead? Was he there when she died? None of that. So I just feel like that would be the biggest twist.
That would be the ultimate twist if that happened. And I actually love that you said that, because I'll go back to that new run again, and I'll give something away. In this new run, there are some scrolls in there that have different powers, right? They can change their mass and size. They can get bigger. They can actually multiply themselves as long as they're touching the others. As long as they're all touching, they can actually multiply to multiple scrolls. So, and they're not necessarily a super scroll, but it's a different type of scroll. So what if she is a different type of scroll like that, to where she can, change whatever, and, maybe make her do some kind of copy, she can touch someone and make them look like her, to make it look like she died, but actually she didn't die. She's actually grabbed. That would be a great mind twist.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of that, actually. Who's who. We've already had that. Who's who. We had a little bit of that, didn't we, in that last scene where they was with the bombings. Was that which Nick was that was shooting Hill? Was Hill was that Nick? Not Nick. Was that? Do you know what I mean? We didn't really know until it was all sort of said and done who was who. And even then, you're still unsure, aren't you? Was that really Hill that was dying, or was that a scroll that kind of got shot and that was planted there and didn't actually die but pretended to die to make Nick think that Hill had died? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? You just don't know what's happening, which is great.
So real quick, the chat here. Back to your Olivia Colman character. 100% obsessed with Olivia Colman character. The snarkiness was perfection. But back on your scroll thing, about Maria Hill. So last we knew, Maria Hill was off world somewhere, right? From Far From Home. She was being Talos and her wife, being covering for them. When did Hill come back? If Hill was on Saber with Fury, when did she come back to Earth? Because all we do is see her driving when the episode starts. So that makes you wonder where she's been. Now, there's all kinds of misdirection from Hill, from the comics to the cartoons, both being LMDs. Stark did tease LMD in Avengers when Coulson came or called him. And he said that, this is the life model decoy of Tony Stark, blah, blah, blah. So do we already have an LMD? I like what you said, Andy. Does she have other scrolls impersonating her in doing that? Because she has precedent in all of these different things to have some big misdirection or to go underground, right? So it was that actually happened, right? We know that when scrolls die, they changed back to their scroll form. So if that was a scroll, that scroll didn't die. They could do LMDs too, to where LMDs can bleed and actually look like they're actually a real person, especially as it probably evolved over time. So I wonder where she's been. Are they going to explain anything from the whole thing that we assume that she was on Saber with Fury? Because we actually didn't see her. That closing credit scene of Fury in space, we just saw Fury. We didn't see Maria Hill at all. So has she been somewhere else? Has she been underground this whole time? Where's Maria Hill been up until now? Last time we saw her.
My only sort of comment on that, whether we'll see her anymore, and if we're going to get more exposition on Hill, is if you look at the end credits, it says special guest star Kobe Smulders and special guest star Martin Freeman. That would suggest to me that they're probably not going to be in the show very much more than what they're already in it.
Unless he comes back at the last episode.
The end, maybe, maybe. I think this, like I said at the beginning, this is Samuel Jackson and Ben Mendelsohn's show.
But But think back, like I said, think back the whole conversation about them, the chess game, the conversation.
Yeah.
You know, May Maria Hill, with Fury's absence, wherever she's been, had some kind of her own contingency plan. And
Yes.
so maybe Fury didn't even know about that. And this whole time, like Alex was saying, Fury's going to think that she's dead and going to do some things, but she's going to be the cavalry maybe in the last episode. And we kind of find out that she's been underground and LMD, other Skrull people have on her team. Because, again, read that run, that 5-episode run, or issue run, because... Yeah, because there's some things in there that could play into this series that they could use. The whole Tony Stark thing is what I'm talking about from Maria Hill that could have happened in this series. So think about that.
And it wouldn't be unusual for Maria Hill to do something like that either.
Yep, exactly.
Kind of to compare, I kind of think of Maria Hill kind of like Coulson, because, you know, Coulson dies from Loki in the first Avengers movie.
Yep.
But, like, in this, like, Maria Hill dies, like, while Nick Fury is involved in something, but this time... like it's by somebody impersonating Nick Fury. So my jaw dropped because I did not expect that. I was like so into the chaos. That was everything that was going on when she's like Nick, and then he just like pulls up the gun and shoots her. I was like, oh, I didn't even think that this could be the Skrull, you know, like.
But at that point, what was you thinking? Was you thinking that's actual Nick Fury killing fake Maria Hill, or was that fake Nick Fury killing real Maria Hill? Do you know what I mean? Like you didn't really know at the time. You was like, which way round is this? Is she a Skrull or is he a Skrull, or are neither of them a Skrull?
I felt like that was fake Nick Fury. I could tell, because after he shoots Maria Hill, his face changes. Like he's got like a smirk on his face. Yeah. Like, I got you. Like, you know, like I fooled you kind of type of deal. So like in that moment, I knew that was the fake Nick Fury, but it's just so heartbreaking because like as she's dying, air quotes, like Nick Fury comes up and she's like, it was you. And he's like, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. And that's like, if she actually dies, that was her, like her final thing is like thinking like it was either him or she knew it wasn't him, but she's trying to tell him it was somebody impersonating you who killed me, you know?
So from the comments here, you don't die from a gunshot in seconds like she did in episode 1. Very painful, but death from that is highly unlikely. Could just be semantics, but that's something I noticed right away. Yeah, and so like I said, Fury's faked his death, you know, in Winter Soldier. You know, we had the Life Maul Quake tease. There's all kinds of misdirection that's been done in the MCU, and this can be another one, you know, so...
Before we move on, a couple of things. Firstly, I'd like to say, actually, Joran, going back to a point that you made a few minutes ago, I think that the plant adapting to Earth is going to have a bigger part in this story than we think at this point, because that was really interesting. Why throw that in there if that wasn't important? That seems to me like that could be important. But so sorry, Alex, you wanted to say something about that. Go on.
I was just going to say, I feel like it's kind of like a symbolism kind of type deal for the Skrulls, where it's like, you know, this isn't really our world, but we're just going to adapt and take it over kind of type of deal. And that's kind of like that plant was like, you know, he says to Fury, hey, like this plant has basically adapted over time to growing here. And I like what you said earlier about maybe like things grow better in Chernobyl because of the radiation and stuff like that, which is very plausible, but like, you know, it almost seems like things like from their home world are kind of like a phenomenon around here. Like they're hard to find. That it just doesn't. It just doesn't happen.
When Gaia picked up that guy at the gate and was riding with her and gave him stuff, he was shocked. He was surprised. You know, about that. So yeah, definitely. I think that is going to be a big thing going forward, and that's probably why they want Earth, because where they've gone other places, maybe that didn't happen. Maybe they didn't were able to grow the vegetation, have their wine, you know, that kind of stuff, grow plants like that. So.
They did make a point of saying there was a lot of unused nuclear sites around, didn't they? You know, and so could that be a reason why they could live in those places and grow their stuff and all of that kind of stuff? But I just want to point out one thing, because we need to move on to normal news soon. But the relationship between Fury and Talos, especially in that moment where they first met each other and Talos told him, that was beautiful. That was brilliant. I absolutely loved that. Like, it just went to show how deep their relationship goes and how friendly they are. And that's unusual for Fury. He's not friends with anybody. Like, he's so stoic, isn't he? And he's so like hard to read. But actually, that moment, you could see that he had genuine love for that man. you know, and genuine care for that person, and he was a friend, and he was human in that moment, you know, where usually he's so kind of, you know,
Business.
hard.
He's always business. Yeah, he's always
Yeah,
business.
he's always
Yep,
business.
He's all
Where
business.
yeah, exactly. That's a good word. He's always business. And in that moment, he was Talos' friend. He was Talos' brother, and I really like that. That made him vulnerable, which I think is important, because somebody said up the top in the comments about him being, you know, he's kind of using that vulnerability and to sort of go, look at me, I'm vulnerable, but actually, no, I'm not.
Yeah, people think it's going to be his weakness, but it's probably going to be one of his strongest assets.
I love the banter, the friendship between them, because at one point they're talking about how Fury's like should be going through his midlife crisis, and he makes a joke, you know, he's like, you know, Talos, you should be too, and he's like, nah, you know, I'm young, I'm only like 40 in human years, you know, like I haven't gotten there yet, and he's like, but speaking of which, what did you get for your midlife crisis? And he's like, the Avengers, and I just love that line. It was like such a nice little throw in.
Talos is 136 in skull years, so
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah.
The other thing too is they have this also good cop, bad cop banter, right? You notice that where Talos doesn't want to kill, doesn't want to really hurt somebody. You know, he won't go over that point, but Fury will. Fury's like no hesitation to killing somebody, but Talos is like no. And I also wonder that's gonna play into the whole scroll off the council, because Talos wasn't ready to make the hard decisions that other scrolls are willing to make.
Yeah, that's exactly why he got thrown off the council, wasn't it? Really, because and that's like what Gia had said to him, or Gia had said to him, like, you know, you won't do what needs to be done, sort of thing.
I also wonder if we're gonna get any aftermath of the start of the next episode of Maria Hill's death on the Fury from Fury as well. So, but yeah, are we good on episode 1?
Yeah, I think just summarizing, personally, and I know I've said this since we done since we done the episode back with Monty and started speaking about Secret Invasion and what it was going to be and all of that, and I said I can see this being right up my street. I mean, you guys know I'm a big fan of the Winter Soldier, and God forbid, big fan of well, not big fan, but a fan of Black Widow, and a fan of all of that kind of spy espionage side of stuff. Shut up. As a fan of that espionage, you know, underground spy stuff. So I knew I was going to like this, and this hit everything for me. Absolutely hit everything for me. Really enjoyed it. Looking forward to the next 5 episodes.
I agree. I'm looking forward to it as well. I want to see how this goes. I know we're going to get more twists and turns, and this series is going to be all about misdirection. And so I'm looking forward to how this series ends and how it sets up a potential season 2, or how it builds into Armor Wars.
Yeah, for sure. And the Marvels as well. Looks like it's going to play into the Marvels, because the president said to Rhodey about how Fury's trying to develop this kind of, you know, next generation
space
stuff.
Saber.
That's it. So that's going to be really interesting too. So really good. Really enjoyed this episode. Can't wait for next week. Should we move on?
Yeah. So big news going on here. San Diego Comic-Con. It looks like there's going to be some shakeups this year there. Marvel Studios has already said they're going to skip it, which I'm not surprised, because usually Kevin Feige wants to have that big presentation, and with all the scheduling stuff and the writer strike going on, a lot of things are up in the air right now. And I think if they were to go to Comic-Con and do something, their biggest thing would be the Fantastic Four casting announcement, possibly some trailers, but not the same normal big presentation that they've done in the past. Also, too, there is no D23 this year either. That's usually isn't like every other year, or the way they do it. I don't think there's one this year. I've heard conflicting things, but I don't think it's actually a yearly thing. It's based on their scheduling. So I wonder where we're going to get any kind of big announcements for those casting things, or any kind of trailer releases for upcoming shows.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I mean, if stuff's not ready, why make a big deal out of nothing? Basically.
Yep, the time, the effort, the cost, all that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
All the planning. Also, too, it's reportedly that HBO and Universal possibly skipping as well, and then other things started being saying that a lot of possible things are going to be skipped.
Everyone just starts pulling out. Marvel pull out, everyone pulls out.
Well, so, and this is maybe more too, because we have the writer strike now, but there's a potential strike by the SAG as well. So it's making it tough for studios to show up to the annual convention without product and performers to promote their projects. If SAG is unable to reach a deal on new labor contract and orders a strike, actors will not be able to do any promotion work for their films and TV shows as part of the labor stoppage. SAG could order a strike anytime after their current contract with Hollywood Studios expires on June 30th if a deal is not reached. Comic-Con is set to take place the weekend of July 21st. So, also, too, it's been said that DC won't show up either if there's a SAG strike. So right now, DC's on the fence. So,
Wow.
They should just not show up.
I mean, I like the Flash. No, I'm just kidding. But could this mean a big change for Comic-Con as we know? Because if you get a lot of the big studios not coming up, that's the huge draw, is to get into those halls to see those panels. You know, they still could have Comic-Con with the other stuff, but the big piece is those panels. So I wonder if this has any impact on Comic-Con going forward. That's the big one. That's the big one. So.
Yeah, it'd be a shame for the people that have. It's a shame, isn't it, for the punters that have tried, saved up all their money to go to these things, and bought tickets, expecting to see stuff, and then nothing happens. It'd be a shame for those guys that have. I know a lot of these people. There was Star Wars Celebration over here in London earlier this year. And there was people that were spending thousands of pounds or dollars or euros or whatever to get here, to go to it. People coming from miles away, people taking trips from the States for a week to come here and spend 3 days at Star Wars Celebration. It'd be a shame if there's people that have put in similar efforts, to get to San Diego and then not. I mean, I know it's nobody's fault as such, but be a shame to those guys.
I'm just going to be honest here. I feel like for DC, if they were smart, they probably would show up, because the biggest issue that they've got is I feel like Blue Beetle and the Aquaman movie are not going to do that well either. I feel like they kind of announced this new direction way too early ahead of all the movies that they still had coming out. It's just like putting a kiss of death on the last few movies that you have that you want to make money off of, because people are like, why do I care about this anymore?
Yeah, it's almost unfair on those movies.
Exactly. It's like a slant against those movies. So like at the end of the day, I feel like if you're DC right now, you either want to come out and talk about what you have coming out on the horizon, maybe like try and pump that up, maybe give us like a little bit of something, or don't show up at all. I mean, I don't know when the actual official like gun, universe kind of takes off. I think it's like with the Superman Legacy movie, which I think comes out in 2025, I think it is.
Well, they said Blue Beetle is the first character, but Superman's the first project. So
yeah, I mean, Blue Beetle though was made before James Gunn took over. That was in the works, so he's gonna like lump that into his universe. I mean, Aquaman's gonna be supposedly lumped in, but I mean, the first Aquaman made like almost $1.2 billion. It's one of the most successful movies DC has ever made. I have a very strong feeling Aquaman 2 will not get anywhere close to that. So it's just like, we'll see. But like, I feel like if you're DC right now, you got to do something to maybe try and bring something to the table here.
I have some more things about Warner Brothers and that kind of stuff. So when we get to the DC news, from the chat here, neither Marvel or DC was at C2E2 in Chicago earlier this year. They had been in past years, so that is telling. But they were at Cine Europe here this past week. Kevin Feige included Deadpool 3, The Marvels, and Captain America: Brave New World in his presentation at the event. He was there by video, introduced an exclusive clip of The Marvels, and mused there's so much to look forward to, including 2024's Deadpool 3 with Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman, and next summer's Captain America: Brave New World, Anthony Mackie taking up the shield. So they are pushing those 3 projects right now because those are confirmed to be coming out and not as much impacted as the strike going on for the writers, or if there's a SAG strike that happens later this month, at the end of this month. So
I don't want to get into a huge conversation, but I do a smile every time I hear Deadpool 3 starring Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman. I'm just like, nice. This is going to happen. This is awesome.
We have some Guardians of the Galaxy 3 digital and physical release dates. Purchased on digital platforms beginning on July 7th. 1 month later, on almost just under 1 month later, on August 1st, you'll be able to do 4K Ultra HD, Blu-ray, and DVD copies will hit the shelves. Right now, there is no date for Disney Plus yet.
That was going to be my question. Okay.
Okay. Across the Spider-Verse, which is back in #1 this weekend, out there, so it's still going strong. So Beyond the Spider-Verse will further explore Miles Morales. Sorry, hold on a second. If you haven't seen Beyond the Spider or Across the Spider-Verse yet, your mom.
Close your ears.
Yeah. Beyond the Spider-Verse will further explore Miles' Prowler variant. To explore how Miles might have developed if he were in a different world where he didn't have his father, where he was mentored by his uncle. What kind of kid would he be? So that's going to be very interesting. And hopefully they start that movie off with that backstory like they do with other Spider-Man variants. Yeah. Okay, now, if you had your earmuffs on, that's the only spoiler I'm going to talk about for Spider-Verse. You can take them off now. There's been some controversy, though, with the animation and the working conditions for Across the Spider-Verse. So Across the Spider-Verse animators say Phil Lord drove them crazy with relentless revision, seemingly unfamiliarity with 3D animation, 6 months of indecision, and demands to redo finished work 5 times. They say No Way is Beyond the Spider-Verse coming out in 2024. Ooh. But then Amy Pascal respond to the animators being demoralized or multiple revisions to the final renders, said, if the story isn't right, you have to keep going until it is. Welcome to making a movie. So this is going to be interesting, and it seems like we're going to have some back and forth, and almost similar to the VFX stuff that we heard with Marvel last year, that we're having some animation issues now, and hopefully they come to some kind of agreement or some kind of compensation or something, or better conditions, or whatever they need to do to get this right, because I do not want to see Beyond the Spider-Verse get delayed any longer. So
it's difficult to understand and to appreciate what goes on, isn't it, really? Because I don't know. I wonder whether they are genuinely undervalued, underpaid. I mean, I don't know any. I don't personally know any visual effects artists who have worked on those movies. It'd be really interesting to actually hear from somebody who does know one or is one. I appreciate there's NDAs and stuff like that, and they can't talk about certain things, but are they paid badly, for the amount of work that they do? I don't really know. I mean, we assume, because we see these articles and we read these things, that they're not paid well and that they're treated badly. But like Amy Pascal just said, welcome to making a movie. Some things just suck. Some things are hard. Some things take a lot of work. I don't know whether I don't know. I'm not saying they don't get paid well, and I'm not saying they do get paid well. I just don't know.
Yeah,
you just don't know what to think, do you? I mean, are we in a world where everybody can strike and protest? I'm not saying they shouldn't. If they're not getting paid fairly, they should, 100%. And I don't agree with AI taking jobs, and I don't agree with writers not getting paid what they should, and all of those things. But you just don't know, and that's what. Yeah, just like it'd be nice to see some transparency.
Yeah. I feel like one of my biggest personal issues with Hollywood as a whole is I don't feel like there's a lot of like new, unique things coming out. Like I feel like everything's just a remake of something else, a sequel that's not needed, or just a spin-off of something that we really didn't want. And then it's like, it's like them just beating like the mess out of something that is literally like, did we need another Indiana Jones movie? Like, no. But like, I'm already seeing them talk about like, hey, we can replace Indiana Jones and keep going and keep making these movies. And I'm like, but we've already had like, what, 5 of these things now? Like, it's just one of those things where I feel
that boat has sailed where they could have James Bonded Indiana Jones.
Yep.
That's sailed. They can't do that now.
It's like that scene from Fight Club where he's at the copy. Everything is a copy of a copy of a copy. You're right, because they're not. There is no new ideas, and I get. Comic books give you all kinds of source material to use and to kind of adapt, but like Alex is saying, you don't have to. Everything doesn't need a project, right? You want to look at what is going to bring the fans in, what's going to keep the fans in. Are we getting superhero fatigue because, or is it other factors? Because, for example, Across the Spider-Verse is doing huge out there, attracting people. But on the other hand, The Flash isn't doing anything, right? So
which I think that's both are like, The Flash isn't as good as Across the Spider-Verse, but it's a pretty good movie. Like, it actually is. I've seen it twice. I liked it better the second time when I watched it the second time. But the thing is Across the Spider-Verse is a quality movie. It's very well written. It's very good. And, like, for a lot of movies right now, they are not the quality of Across the Spider-Verse. I'm sorry. Like, it's just, it is what it is.
Well, I think, too, I'll just tell you guys now, since we're talking about The Flash, and I'll skip this one and get to the DCU. So it just now passed 200 million worldwide at 210 million, right? So this goes back to, is The Flash just because of the actors in it? Is it because that, the challenges we know about one of the main character that's playing The Flash? Is it because we know that the DC is changing their universe, and we don't know what the Flash plans are going to be? Also, too, they had a lot of pre-screenings for this movie. And this movie, the opening weekend, you could watch the whole movie pretty much on TikTok, and a lot of the details were out there already. So did they misjudge in the marketing for this? Did they misjudge? I don't think one thing it could be. I think it's basically a combination of things, all the above. And, hopefully DC learns from this, because I think they overhyped the movie. I think they had too many screenings. Yes, the whole Ezra Miller stuff with is going to be an issue with some people. It basically the perfect storm, and also James Gunn come out and saying, well, the DC basically is going to be different as it is, and kind of leaving some ambiguity with where the Flash is going to be in that new DC universe.
Yeah, and Alex kind of said it a minute ago, didn't he? Really, about how like Blue Beetle and Aquaman have almost been sort of like brushed aside, and it's harsh because they're movies that are still there to be seen and to be completed in regards to like their viewing and people going to see them and their release and things like that. And it's almost like they've been disregarded before they've even been released. And I don't know whether this movie suffered from that, but in regards to the Ezra thing, like, yeah, okay, he's a strange individual. Whatever's been proven or hasn't been proven, I don't really know. How many people do actually know? Has that really made a difference? Has that really made a massive difference?
The chat here, though, it says it's Ezra for me from the chat.
Yeah, so. But I mean, I would assume that people that are listening to this have got a real invested interest in comic movies. But general public, do they really know much about Ezra Miller?
True. I feel like the issue that you have, though, is like your lead actor in the movie can't go out and do press for the movie.
Right.
Yes.
Because,
yes.
like when you have your actor go out, he answers questions. He talks about how great it would be. Like, he would be asked questions like, how did you feel acting alongside Michael Keaton? They're sitting there talking back and forth. They couldn't do that with Ezra. It was like, if we put him out there, everybody's only going to ask those questions about what he's done in his private life. They're not going to ask about the Flash. So that was why they kind of just like kept him quiet. And
one small correction for our listeners: Ezra goes by they. Just so you guys know.
Yeah, they.
Okay. From the other person from the chat here about the Flash, I really enjoyed the Flash so much more than I thought I would. Whether it delayed our viewings, but it's 100% worth the wait. And my son, when he saw the previews, he wanted to go see it, and then as it got close to the movie coming out, his excitement died down. Like I told you, I think last episode, the one before that, I said, "What do you want to see?" I go, "Do you want to go see? Do you want to go see Transformers, or do you want to see the Flash?" And he chose Transformers. And I've even said to him before, I was like, "Do you want to go see the Flash?" And he's like, "Nope." So,
to be fair, my family's exactly the same. We had the opportunity to go. I wanted to chalk. I think I said this last week. I was trying to chalk off a bucket list item where I was going to go and pay for one movie and sneak into another, but it never happened. It's sad, isn't it? That's one of my bucket list items, that I want to go to one movie and sneak into another straight afterwards. Oh, how sad is my life? Anyway, point being is that the Flash was one of the movies that was potentially to be able to sneak into, and it was down on the list after Transformers, after, I think, Jesus Christ, it might have even been after Fast X. In regards to the people that I was with, my son, both my sons and one of my son's friends. So it was second or third choice. And I sort of said to them, do you want to go see it? And they was like, no, not really. And I was like, well, I might go see it on my own then, because I would like to see it in the cinema.
Yeah.
So it's just this general, I don't know, maybe the general hype for DC movies is not where Marvel movies are, for example.
I mean, I'm excited to go see Blue Beetle. You know?
Yeah. I mean, the trailers for that were before Into the Spider-Verse, and it looks great.
Yeah.
I mean, that movie isn't going to make $500 million. It's not going to make $250 million. Probably, it's probably going to be like 100. I mean, that movie will probably beat Shazam 2, I think.
Yeah.
You know,
but it'll probably be pretty good. It looks pretty good.
It was originally meant to be on HBO, so anything that they do in theaters is like kind of a home run for them, I think, because you know, like it was going to be on HBO anyways, so like it's kind of additional for them.
I mean, unless we're doing a recap show of The Flash soon, I'll probably wait to see The Flash when it comes on streaming. You know, it does entice me to want to see it in the movie theaters, but I'll probably wait till it comes out on streaming.
I personally think now that I know that nobody in my household is bothered about going to see it, I'll probably find time to go on my own, which is why a lot of the time, you know, so for viewers listening, you know, why did it take us so long to do it Across the Spider-Verse show? Because all my family wanted to go watch it, and it's hard to tie in.
Coordinate,
yeah, exactly, yeah. Mm-hmm. Now that I know that nobody's bothered about going to see The Flash, I can go see it on my own.
So,
so I probably will do that.
If we're going to do a recap, let me know so I can go see it.
Pressure's on now, Jarian. I'm going this week. No, I'm not. I don't know. Anyway, let's
moving on. Okay, so rumor time. Daniel RPK has a rumor says that Haley Stanfield's Kate Bishop will appear in the Marvels and several other MCU projects. RPK said that Stanfield is also set to star in a Young Avengers project, which is officially slated as to be determined 2025-2026. So it's not been confirmed, but he believes that there's an announcement coming in a few months.
Yeah, so, I mean, I would really, I think the dynamic between Aman Vellani and Haley Steinfeld would be tremendous.
I haven't heard just Xyltal Gomez, and also to the young woman who plays Cassie, Catherine. I can't remember her whole name, but she plays Cassie in Quantumania.
Yes,
I think that dynamic between all of them would be really well done.
Yeah, I think you'll need a male in there. You need a strong male in there as well, though.
Well, I'm sure we can tie the Patriot in. I'm possibly, you know, I'm trying to think who else they could tie in. Riri could be tied into that. But another male. I'm trying to think.
Obviously, we got the potential of a Billy and a Tommy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I just thought about? This is crazy, and probably I'm going off the reservation here. If Fury is married to a Skrull, because this is how they introduce Hulkling into the MCU. If they had a child, instead of it being a Kree Skrull, could it be a human Skrull hybrid? I'm seriously.
Maybe.
So
who knows?
Because it'd be good to see. Yeah, it'd be good to get the Hulkling in as well. Yeah. And you kind of have that complete team there. Iron Lad they could even do at some point.
Yeah, I'd really like to see Iron Lad, but I think if they're going to bring Billy Kaplan, I think they need to bring Hulkling in, and they need to nurture that relationship between the two of them for a while before they become an item. I think that otherwise, just forcing them together will feel forced, and I think the audience will go, well, what's that all about? You just forced this gay relationship together, and it's like, no, this is something that did play out in comics over a long time, but I think if they forced it on screen, it would backfire for them. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Even if they don't have it be Fury's child, could they tease Hulkling at the end of Secret Invasion? Possibly. So I'm just thinking out that loud, because when else do they introduce Hulkling? You know, or even the Marvels could introduce Hulkling.
Yeah.
Another thing too, he says, is that Hawkeye season 2 is in development, along with also appearing in Secret Wars. So that will be interesting how that Hawkeye season 2, if that can set up Young Avengers as well, with more Kate focus, but also with Jeremy Renner's injury and recovery. How's that going to play into things for Hawkeye season 2 as well?
Really like to see him take on like a real mentor role.
Yep.
You know, it'd be
like
really
him,
nice. just occasionally turn up in Avengers movies or whatever, whoever's movie. To be totally honest, it doesn't matter. You know, more Jeremy Renner the better, to be honest. But if he turns up in a mentor type role, great.
It'd be kind of good to see him and Scott turn up as mentors throughout the series. Scott, kind of the comedic one. Clint, kind of the serious one, but the kind of the good cop, bad cop type of thing.
Yeah.
I saw somebody mention that it would be kind of cool if in the meantime Jeremy Renner kind of just like rolled in on like his like hover bike, like
why not?
Yeah, like give it to him now, like he can just like sit on it or something, you know, or be like on it and take a shot from a long distance or something, you know, like
kind of like just own it, like Jeremy Renner, just own it. Like if anybody's gonna just own like what's happened to him, it's gonna be him. Like he's gonna go, do you know what? I will carry on being in a Marvel movie, but this is how I want to be in this Marvel movie. Like, and I want to own, I want to own like being injured, like within the movie. You know, like I want to still be injured. You know, you can dress it up however you want, but I'm gonna be in this on this bike. You know, yeah, cool.
From this, the chat about the Young Avengers stuff being set up, that's exciting to hear from the chat. Also, too, someone says Jeremy Renner becomes the man in the chair for a season. There you go.
Why not? Yeah, why not?
Yeah. Armor Wars news. Reportedly, it's still in the schedule, and it's still looking at July 25th, 2025 is the rumor going around. So, not sure. Yep. Deadpool 3. Reportedly, Ben Affleck was on set. And the rumor is saying that he'll appear in Deadpool 3, possibly reprising his role as Matt Murdock. There's also been some traction out there on Jessica Alba as well. This movie sounds like it's going to be Deadpool kills the Fox universe.
Yeah. Throw the kitchen sink at it, get him to kill them all. Yeah.
Or he just goes through and makes fun of the old Fox movies. So,
you know what? I'm happy to see that version of Matt Murdock if it means that we'll never see him again. if that's
if he gets his head chopped off.
Yeah. Like make it count, please. You know, like
from the chat here, someone also agrees to Deadpool kills Foxverse. So we have some El Muerto news. It was taken off the Sony release schedule. It has been delayed indefinitely due to writer's strike. It is unknown if the film will be resumed due to Bad Bunny's hectic tour schedule. But also, too, more news came out saying that Tombstone was going to be in the movie. Was going to explore the anti-hero story and introduce Tombstone, a famous mafia boss from the Spider-Man comics. They were eyeing Marvin Jones III for the role, who voiced the character in Into the Spider-Verse.
Okay.
So was it supposed to be like El Muerto versus Tombstone, I guess, kind of?
I don't know. But also, too, it says that Mercedes Varnado, better known as Sasha Banks, is also in an unnamed role as well. So I'm hearing conflicting things about this movie right now. But right now, the main thing is that Bad Bunny is going to be busy for a while, so that could change things up.
It's probably not a bad thing, to be honest.
Let's see how Craven does, you know.
Yeah.
Sony first,
yeah.
You know?
I forgot. The Craven trailer came out. We didn't talk about that. We can talk about that at the end. Okay. Also, some Star Wars news. There is some talk about Rey Skywalker Star Wars movie. It's reportedly going to be April of 2024 to start shooting. And the Star Wars title is going to be Star Wars New Jedi Order. So,
you know what? I'm going to go against the grain.
Yeah.
I actually don't mind Rey. Like, I know a lot of people don't like her, but I'm not against her at all.
I'm neither mind.
No, and I quite like Daisy Ridley. I've not got a huge problem. The movies themselves, like the sequel movies, they weren't great.
Especially the second one.
Yeah, I understand that the movies weren't great, but her as a character, I'm not totally against her at all, to be totally honest. So if they can do a good movie, I'm happy to see that.
Yeah,
I'm happy to see that. And yeah, New Jedi Order. It's kind of what I thought that her trilogies would be. You know, her trilogy would be that, but it kind of never turned into that. So hopefully this new one will. But I hope they don't just rehash the same stuff
story.
Yeah, exactly, and just go through it for a new generation of people. I hope they actually give us a new story. You know.
Catching up on chat here. Look what they did to Craven and Morbius. But the Sony stuff.
We will in a minute. Don't worry.
Yeah, someone goes awful, and then the person goes, "I like Ray." So,
There you
all
go.
from the chat here. Okay, DCU news. Sasha Cal has confirmed that she's met with DC Studios CEO Peter Safran about her potential DCU future. I hope to continue playing Supergirl. I love her so deeply, and I feel so connected to her. Now, I've heard great things about her in the movie. Alex, you've seen it, so you can comment. But I'm fine. So it's looked cool in the trailers. So
I mean, yeah. I'll just say that the way that the movie explains it is that she probably most likely won't have a future in DC. And it's one of those things where it seems like what happens to her character is inevitable. Like it's always going to happen. So I'm not going to say what happens and spoil it for everybody. Like she did great. They kind of did this nice little thing where like in Flashpoint, they find Kal-El, and Kal-El is this like, withered, like human looking person that's been trapped in like a little room and he hasn't seen the sun. And they did that in this, but instead she lands in Russia and they go and pull her out of Russia. And when she makes it outside, she does awesome in the fight scene when she gets the sun and she floats up in the sky and everything. It's great. So I did like her.
It is a multiverse movie, so they could bring her back, right?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing is like, and I'm kind of confused with the ending on The Flash, and it's because, like, you're kind of made to believe that, like, Barry realizes that he needs to fix what he changed, and then he makes another additional small change at the end of the movie, but ends up in a completely different universe. And the ending, you're like, this makes no sense. How can he be in the same universe as Gunn's universe unless he goes to another universe and we somehow end up in another universe? But that's not in this movie. So why would they do that? Like,
I feel like that Pepe Silva gift from Charlie from It's Always Sunny right now.
Yeah, Pepe Sylvia.
Yeah. Speaking of other heroes, Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot on her future as Wonder Woman. Things are being worked behind the scenes, and once the right moment arrives, you'll know about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I have no clue what that means. So if the money's right,
I don't. Yeah, that's what it means. Yeah, that's exactly what it means. I was going to say I don't think she knows what it means either. To be honest,
I mean, I liked her as Wonder Woman, as Diana. So they could go that route. I like the way they portrayed the Amazons in the movies. So if she's back, I'm cool with it.
I mean, we're supposed to be getting that show from James Gunn, I think, about like Themyscira.
Yeah.
And the Amazons like 5,000 years ago or something like that. So it's going to be like, I guess, about the founding of how the Amazons kind of got set up and everything. So I feel like that'll probably be a little bit of a prequel to Wonder Woman. So, like maybe they change her, maybe they keep Gal. I mean, they put Gal Gadot in Shazam 2. They put her in The Flash. They have put her in... like we just had Wonder Woman 84, so like not long ago. I mean, that was, a year or two ago that came out. So like,
I mean, they could end that series with her as a child, and then it goes to present day.
Which,
where she's...
the second movie touched on her as a child.
Yeah, exactly.
Going through the games and everything and competing with all the adult female Amazons that are like out there, like running, and she's like 7 years old. So it's like, I don't know, it's very interesting. So.
From the chat here, that was the only good thing in Shazam 2. I disagree with that. I thought for the most part Shazam 2 was a good movie. I like the family, I like the kids. I just didn't like Zachary Levi because it seemed like he was not connected to Billy Batson at all in that movie. Mm-hmm. So the rest of the family, they all connected great with their younger selves and older selves. But Levi was like, he phoned that in pretty much, it seemed like. Or didn't understand the assignment.
My favorite meme is the one where the mother is talking to him as Shazam, and she's like, "Can you please turn back into Billy? That way I can talk to the more mature one." And I'm just like, "Oh man, that's so spot on."
If they make any more Shazams, they need to do the same thing they do with Mary and just have the kid who plays Billy Batson play also Shazam as well.
I just don't think he's big enough. That's the problem. Like Shazam's like Zachary Levi's.
Yeah,
like,
he bulked up.
6 inches taller than him too, and he's.
They can do camera magic. Yeah, they can do camera magic. The kid can bulk up.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, they could always just have him just stay Levi the whole movie too, and never turned back into Billy, which they didn't even have that much of him changing back and forth in Shazam 2. So,
Yeah, true.
you know.
The last thing of the news before we talk about the Craven trailer is that Warner Brothers Discovery is in talks to sell around half of the studio's film and TV music publishing assets for around $500 million. So that merger and, you know, DC not doing much, it sounds like they need some cash. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's all I have for the news. I guess the last thing we can talk about is the Craven trailer.
Yeah, let's do it. Strange. It like I've got like I looked at some of that. I'm a big Aaron Taylor Johnson fan. I like him. I think he's cool. I think he was cool in Kick-Ass. I think he was cool in as Quicksilver. I thought he was cool in a couple of other things I've seen him in like Bullet Train, and you know I like him. I think he's good. However, and there was cool moments in this, but generally speaking, I was just sort of sitting there going, "This, I'm not encouraged by this in the slightest." There was some sort of fun, like little bits, but it's not enough for me to want to go and watch a movie, you know?
The lion bite with the drop of blood that goes into the wound. I was like, oh no, please tell me we're not doing what I think we're doing.
It's
Please,
Spider-Man with
oh, Lord.
lions.
Yeah, he got bitten by a radioactive lion. I was like, it's so great that they like almost in the MCU when they did Vulture, like Sony wasn't in charge of doing Vulture because he would have been bitten probably by a radioactive
bird.
yeah, and turned into Vulture. Like, you know, like
We have radioactive spiders, radioactive birds, radioactive lions, radioactive rhinos, and a radioactive goblin. I don't know.
You know, I was kind of watching that trailer going, and then you go, I mean, that was basically my feelings throughout that trailer.
So the chat emoji thing, that's why I'm cracking up laughing here. If people listening to this, is that someone just did a whole thing of the puking emoji in the comments I put on screen. But I have mixed thoughts on this. It kind of feeds off the early days of the Craven comics. If you kind of go back in history a little bit, with him, the animals and that kind of stuff, and some of the things. So there's some of that nostalgia there and that comic connection. For me though, the radioactive lion bite or whatever that lion is, you know, kind of threw me off. The whole thing with the spiders falling down to him scene kind of threw me off. The whole thing about the whole erasing the villain and then all of a sudden doing the right thing and this and that. It's like they didn't understand the tone, or there's conflicting tones, or whoever did the trailer should have changed it up a little bit to not have that conflicting tone. The most exciting thing for me in the trailer though was at the end when it looks like we're gonna get the proper Rhino. Right? If we see a proper Rhino, for me, I'll be very happy with that. But if this film was just called The Hunter and had nothing to do with attached to the comics or Craven, it looked like a cool movie, right? Mm-hmm. But it like Sony's fashion though, it looks like it's a mess. But you know, and nothing against Paul Giamatti's Rhino, because I love Paul Giamatti, but the Mechanical Rhino and the end of Amazing Spider-Man 2 didn't do it for me. But if we get a proper Rhino on screen, I think that'll be good for me. And it seems like they're trying to build toward that Sinister Six type of project. So we have Morbius, we have now we have Craven, you have Vulture coming in already. You know, are they trying to build up to that Sinister Six bad guys movie? Who knows? And who knows what they're going to make their Sinister Six roster going to be?
I got those vibes of like the Rob Schneider, the Animal movie from this, but like an R-rated version. You know what I'm saying? Like it just like it felt like that to me. I don't know. Like I watched the trailer like 2 or 3 times, and I was just kind of just like really kind of confused. It's like it's a very interesting situation with the Rhino at the end. I'm like, is he bitten by a rhino?
Yeah.
Like, you know, like is he bitten by the lion?
Speared,
like I'm just
speared by a rhino.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I wonder if they were doing some other, like, what if they tied this into where Oscorp or whatever was doing experimentation on other animals past the spiders, right? If they were doing experimentation on rhinos and lions, or we find out there's some kind of connection there, that'd be kind of cool, and that kind of helps kind of build things out. Yes, it's different from the comics, you know, and that kind of stuff, but if it actually connects together, you know, to me, this doesn't look as bad as Morbius did, honestly. I'll probably go see this. I didn't see Morbius until It came out on Netflix, and I don't think I've seen the whole movie as a whole because I keep falling asleep during it. But at least this movie has Russell Crowe in it and that kind of stuff.
It's got a good
Yeah.
cast.
Yeah,
It's got a good
exactly.
cast. Yeah. I agree. Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. It just seems a bit of a mess.
Yeah.
I agree with this comment.
Yeah, it would be a cool character and a cool movie, but it isn't the Craven we know. Exactly. Like, this movie was just called The Hunter, like I was saying. Boom, I go see it. 'Cause I'd be like, yeah, he's messing people up. I'd be like, yeah, get him, that kind of thing. But it's tied to Craven, so we'll see. It's kind of so cool to get the proper Craven costume at the end. We see in that shot in the poster, which that poster kind of plays off of Black Panther, and also plays off of there's two different posters like that. Superheroes look kind of leaning back like that in the chair. But yeah, I don't know.
You know,
We shall see.
I was talking to somebody about this movie, and I was saying, you know, it was so funny to me because it's like I feel like Sony gets Spider-Man, but they don't get the villains a lot of the time, and it feels like they just miss the mark. And I was like using Venom too as my biggest example. Why do you have Venom go to a rave when one of his weaknesses is sound? Like, you know, like that just seems like the one place he should not be at, you know?
Well,
like,
because he's DJing, so he's not going to harm himself while he's DJing the rave.
yeah, you just like,
He was getting paid to DJ. Like,
yeah, you're just like, okay, Sony, I hear you.
Someone's comparing this to Black Adam, which I think Black Adam wasn't the producer's fault. I think The Rock kind of wanted to not do Black Adam properly. And like I said before, when we talk about Black Adam, all The Rock had to do was be the villain for one. The Rock had to follow Arnold Schwarzenegger's path, the Terminator. If he would have followed that path, they could have made a whole Shazam franchise. Or the chair. I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, you're right. Yeah, the chair. That's right. Black Adam had the poster. I'm sorry. But yeah, my rant was like, they could have made a whole franchise with Shazam if The Rock would have been the villain for one movie and then brought him back as kind of that companion helper kind of hero going forward like they do with the Terminator. But I'm sorry. I misunderstood. Yeah, Black Adam had the chair poster as well like that.
He was sitting back in the chair.
Yeah.
Somebody should have just leaned into The Rock and said, hey, Black Adam isn't a big character like the Justice League. Like, you know, like kind of know your place like as the character of Black Adam, you know, like he's not going to be like up here in every movie with Superman and stuff like that.
So I was going to say, and that's why sometimes actually, and we've said it before about casting these huge guys, and I don't mean stature, like huge actors with huge followings and huge, you know, really popular guys in these roles. I get it because they need to have some star power maybe to promote the role, but actually that could then work against the role itself, you know, like, so The Rock obviously didn't want, you know, he wanted something different to what the character actually was, where if it was a lesser known actor that was more susceptible to, you know, to a different story, they might have been less inclined to sort of say, no, actually, I want it to be like this, which then may have led to what you were saying, Jaren.
But the thing is, though, as bad as that movie kind of wasn't the story and The Rock not embracing the character fully, Black Adam is kind of their most successful recent DC movie, though, box office.
But is that just purely because of The Rock?
Oh, it's The Rock. Oh, definitely it's The Rock. My sister
I mean,
loves The Rock, and she's doesn't really know Black Adam, but she went and saw the movie and enjoyed it. So
I mean, like, I think even with like the Fast movies, every movie that The Rock is in has like crushed the other ones, you know. So it's like, you know,
he has a very popular following.
That's why I kind of feel like, I hate to say this, but for DC right now, you might be looking at Black Adam might be the top of what's going on right now for a while.
Yeah, okay.
Because of The Rock I hate to say it like this, but he puts asses in the seats.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
honestly,
know what you're saying, but is it short term gain for long term loss? Like, could they have gone do you know what I mean? Could they have sort of built this up over like that story that Jarian was saying? I mean, I don't know much about the Black Adam Shazam story other than what you've told me, guys.
That could have been a whole franchise.
Well, and it should have ended with, like, I think Black Adam fighting Superman and Shazam, like, at the same time. Like, that would have been an awesome thing. They could have put Cavill, Levi versus The Rock. And they did an animated movie like this, and it's a great animated movie, you know? Like, and they could have done something like that, and I feel like fans would have gone nuts for that, you know? Like,
they could have had a whole, like I said, Shazam franchise and just kept going the whole time. So from the chat here, I heard he kind of bullied DC Brass to get what he wanted. I don't know if that's true, obviously, but it's believable. I feel like he's one-dimensional acting-wise, so he's okay to me. So The Rock's had some pretty good films, right? And he's played some different roles in some of those films. Like the one film with the football kids, where he's
Gridiron Gang.
yeah, Gridiron. That's a great movie.
Brilliant.
I thought he was great in G.I. Joe. You know, I thought he did well in that movie. I think he does bring another level to the Fast and Furious movies, because I don't know if you watched this last week, but I said I went through and watched all the movies and down the latest one. I think him in those movies, other than him being the only one sweating and no one else sweating in some of the scenes, I'm trying to figure out why he's sweating so much. But you know,
they sprayed him with baby.
Yeah. Well, Tyrese makes that joke. Someone got the baby oil, and he's like, you know, he's always making the joke back and forth with Tyrese.
Definitely.
But yeah, he's had some roles where he's done some pretty good things. I just, even when he was the football player, where he had like the daughter and that kind of stuff, another movie. So I think he's played some pretty good roles. I just think he kind of misunderstood the Black Adam's assignment and what the potential could have been. Yes, again, this is probably the most grossing movie for DC as of late. But, you know, what's going to happen once Blue Beetle comes out? Or you said Aquaman was pretty popular, that movie. So when part 2 comes out, Jason Momoa is like The Rock as well. He has a big following. Again, my sister, who loves The Rock and goes see anything with The Rock in it, same thing with Jason Momoa. If it's a Jason Momoa movie, she'll go see it. She don't care. So...
Yeah, and I mean, like, I think the other thing with The Rock, too, is, like, he did that Hobbs and Shaw movie, right? I think that movie did, like, $750 million, and it's a spin-off of the Fast movies. You know what I'm saying?
And it's really not very good either. So.
Yeah, but you got Jason Statham, you got The Rock, and you got Idris Elba. So that's woman candy. Eye candy for women right there.
Excellent cast right there. I mean, all three of those are great actors. They are phenomenal, you know, like, and The Rock, like, he does a good job. Like, he's a great actor, but maybe he didn't do the best job with Black Adam, I think.
And as far as this one, about your comment about the Shazam movie with Superman, that kind of stuff, they said that, I agree, Alex, that could have been really cool. Yeah. So,
brilliant. Should we wrap it up there, guys?
Yep. So just to let you guys know, we do have a new streaming location now. So Kick Streaming is new as this week. You can catch us live and interact in the chats on Facebook page, Facebook groups, Twitch, YouTube, Trovo, and Kicks. We do stream at Twitter, but we don't see the chat. So if you want to get involved in the chat, make it over to one of those other places where we can see the chats. And then we always have the Instagram page for stuff from the group or recap stuff that we post for the episodes.
Speaking of chat, as I've had a few tins today, I can't ignore that last comment.
All right, I'll put it up there. You want to go for it?
Put it up there. Let's go for it.
Random question. If you could choose any celebrity to see get tickled, who would it be?
Hi, Emma. 1998, whatever it is. Go on then. I think someone like really serious, like I don't know, like Dame Judi Dench would be quite funny.
Yeah, I don't know who I would choose for this. I almost feel like I would want to choose somebody like that. I think it would be funny to watch somebody like Elizabeth Olsen, but at the same time, I feel like it would be funny to do it to like John Bernthal, because I feel like whoever's going to do it is going to get punched in the face. You know what I'm saying? So like, it might be funnier to do it to something like that. So
yeah, somebody who's just going to turn around and kick him in the face afterwards.
Yeah.
And the follow up to that, to the question says, I say Justin Bieber, as he's quite arrogant and he'd hate it. LOL. Another one from the chat here. Yep, I stayed for the whole show, so I'm late. LOL. Gotta run. Good show, fellas. Catch you later. Thank you for staying up with us.
It's been a pleasure.
Yep,
as always. So there you go, Emma. You've had Dame Judi Dench and John Bernthal. Are we done?
I just want to keep talking.
No, I'm good. I'm good. I'm going to get out of it. I'm sweating. I need another drink. I'm empty. No, it's been an absolute pleasure, as always, guys. We'll see you again.
Yep. Secret Invasion episode 2 next week, same time. Talk to you next week.
See you guys.